And now, it's time for...
More dirty jokes.
Nope.
The big vibrating box with a bunch of batteries in it.
Try again.
I'm gonna explain it to you if you guys shut up.
It's kind of amusing.
This is the RPM Podcast.
It is so good to say this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RPM Podcast. We are, in fact, back just in time for the summer stretch of motorsports on national and local levels. It is myself, Eric Brennan, along with Nick Rendo, Sam Ballard Jr., and the man of the hour, our buddy Josh Matthews.
I only get the hour?
Well, okay, you got me there. Now,
Greedy
first,
asshole.
we got some explaining to do. And it all cites back to...
That's right, Lucy. You got some explaining to do.
We got some explaining to do. It cites back to May 23rd, where our buddy Josh began what turned out to be a 41-day stint at Robert Wood Johnson Medical Center as he began what was pretty much a valiant fight against APL leukemia. And I'm happy to say that Josh has only been home for a few days when he decided, along with Sam, and then Nick and I just kind of went along for the ride, to essentially get the band back together and try to get this podcast back up and running as quickly as possible. Now,
I told you we could do it from the hospital, damn it.
Well, we tried, but I know, in fact, Josh even inquired about it at the hospital, and he got a little bit of resistance right off the bat, but we were trying to make it happen. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that have taken place while Josh went through probably one of the biggest fights of his life.
Just look at his hair.
That's part of it. Think back to everything that's happened since. Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari winning at Monaco. Takuma Sato winning the Indy 500. Scott Dixon surviving that terrible wreck and then going on to win at Road America a few weeks ago. In NASCAR, you had drivers like Austin Dillon and Ryan Blaney getting their first Cup wins. The 24 Hours of Le Mans came and went. And the short track racing season, even on the local level, New Egypt Speedway and Bridgeport have had excellent racing surfaces to start off their season. And, of course, at Wall Stadium Speedway, Jimmy Blewett has just been outright dominating the first stint of the local racing calendar there. So much has happened, and we essentially have collectively agreed that what we're going to do, at least for today, is to try to give you the show like we normally would, of course, while praising the fact that Josh is back with us. Now, where do we go from here? Well, we all kind of talked before we got on the air here, and again, the general consensus is we want to continue to bring the show to you each and every week. In fact, Josh, something I didn't even get a chance to tell you off air, we had Ryan Flores, who's, of course, one of the tire changes for Ryan Blaney's Cup team, joined me in the tower while Earl was in Pocono a few weeks ago. And he told me he listens to the show from North Carolina, and he would like to get involved in some capacity, and he's got a lot of weight that he could pull to try to get some interest down there as well. So there's a lot of different ways that this show can go and branch out, and we continue to hope to do that, and that's what we're going to do beginning today. But first and foremost, Josh, how are you feeling?
Other than the migraine and occasional nausea, I'm all right, I guess. I don't know. I'm definitely not 100%, but it's good to be home. And emotionally, that's a huge boost. I get to see my kid every day as opposed to just the weekends. So, that's the best I can say about it is, it's good to be home. But we're far from out of the woods yet. I have months of treatment ahead, which, anybody who's, known anybody close with any form of cancer knows that it's not a quick, easy, and done process. Mm-hmm. I have, we'll call it outpatient treatment. I have to head down to, I get to go to our local hospital, which is only 10 minutes away, as opposed to an hour and a half away for daily treatment coming up. That'll start in another week or so. And, that'll be daily, but at least I get to come home at night and, be here. And then I'll get a short break from that and then start up another round daily for another month. And then after that, hopefully just pills and checkups. So bring on the bone marrow biopsies.
Yeah, and I must say that through this whole process, Josh has been in contact with all of us. And in fact, I didn't even have a chance to see them in the hospital. Sam and Nick got up there this week. Countless people stopped to visit Josh. Countless people reached out to him. There's a GoFundMe page that's up that we're going to be posting on our page at the end of the show because Josh's medical costs will just continue to escalate from here. And we're also going to be having a fundraiser, which we have to issue a huge thank you to Jeff, Eric, and Melanie Lane, who have taken this thing by the horns and have just allowed it to explode into what is going to be one of the most fun events that you could ever go to this summer. It's going to be at the Chapter House Bar and Grill in Howell, New Jersey. It's going to go from about 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. Going to be a nice long afternoon of what will be laughs, drinks, stories, contests, delicious food, and drink specials, a whole bunch more. We're not really going to be doing a live show there because a lot of that, when we do that, in fact, we've done it there twice, it really puts a load on Josh, who handles all of this stuff that you see here. And with that, the whole time that Josh was in the hospital, which again was for 41 days, he was sending us links and stories that he wanted to talk about because this show remained a top priority for him. And I just think that's amazing. And Josh, I'm so happy to be back here with you.
Well, you better be. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, with that, it's going to be hard to transition into talking about racing, but that's what we're here to do, and that's what many of you are here to listen for. But again, the good news is Josh is back. Nick is here ready to talk some F1 after the most recent round was a crazy event in Baku. But we'll start in Daytona. Now, that race usually turns out to be one of the most wild things that we see all year long. Under the lights, the track has so much grip. When they came down for the restart, with just, I think it was 3 to go, if you took the top 6, I think all of them only won like a combined 5 races. You had a couple guys going for their first career win. You had David Reagan going for his first win in a while. And it ended up being Ricky Stenhouse Jr. grabbing the win. But the entire race, from start to finish, had you on the edge of your seat. And I don't know if you gentlemen had a chance to watch it. Sam, you've been relatively quiet, so I'm actually going to start off with you. The race itself. I know that we had a rain out at all, so we kind of got a chance to watch the majority of it. At least I know we did from where we were sitting. But did it live up to expectations? And to me, I want to know, amongst all of you, the stage racing element. I think at the plate tracks, it plays the biggest role. And some people may not agree with that, but I think it stopped a lot of the single-file freight training we're used to seeing. I'm curious what you guys think. Sam, I want to start with you.
I think it brings me back to like racing on Saturday night. You know, now you have guys that just they can't or they don't want to sit in the back and just ride along. You know, guys like Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick with the wins, they totally can. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, if you don't have a win, you want to get up there and get some stage points. So I think, that's a great point of the race. The race overall, I thought it was great. No complaints. The end, Ricky Stenhouse was able to just restrictor plate race the drivers.
You bring up an interesting point. That's a unique way to put it. And now I'm curious. Now, so Stenhouse gets the win at Talladega, comes back, gets the win at Daytona, and it was so cool to see him as electric as he was, not only in victory lane, but he was celebrating on the front stretch.
It was really cool to see Danica Patrick in the victory lane again.
Yeah, that's a good point also. Now, is it time to say that Stenhouse is becoming one of the better restrictor plate racers, or is that a little bit too soon?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's dumb luck. I think it's anybody's game. I've said that since day one on the show.
I disagree. Brad Keselowski is probably the best restrictor plate racer since Dale Earnhardt, in my opinion.
Well, and you also got David Reagan, who ran up front all night long. He was, and he's only.
But Brad Keselowski, man, he knows. I don't know what he does.
But the thing is, on that last lap, you're waiting for that last push, and somebody's going to try to block, and there's always a wreck because they're all idiots. I really think it comes down to what?
I think
if you manage to do the right block and get the right push at the right time, anybody, I don't care how good of a plate racer you are, sometimes it is just dumb luck about getting the right guy to push you, or the guy who's going to be like, well, I have no way to actually pass him, so I'm just going to push him and get second.
I
and
agree
get the
with
best
you,
I
Josh,
can.
but Ricky Stenhouse was able to create that huge gap coming out of 4 where he gave, or really out of 2, where he gave no one a shot to try to pass him. And in a way, he had to plan that and manipulate the field in a way, or maybe that was just dumb luck. But
I mean, maybe he's a little bit more natural at it than other guys. I mean, but you've seen Dale Jr., handle it and usually do fairly well, and then he sucked like I can't even imagine on that night.
He did. He.
But although after that, you get all the drivers complaining, usually like, oh well, it's a product of plate racing, blah blah, stuff like that. Dale Jr., to his credit, now normally or at least recently I've been not on his side for a majority of things. I will say he actually seemed the most enthusiastic despite getting wrecked out. He's like, well, we wrecked. We came back, worked our way up to 6th, I think it was, and then wrecked again, and then wrecked again. And, he still had a good attitude. And, almost like I think even though he's going to be retired, I don't actually see – I could see him kind of Michael Waltriping it a little bit and running a couple plate tracks.
There's been talks already. He's been talking to Amy because I guess she makes the shots now. That,
which I've said on the show before.
Yeah, yes. That he's looking at making a Clash comeback.
Okay.
Yeah, he would have been eligible
Sell
anyway.
more T-shirts.
because they usually allow past winners of the Clash in that race, but he won the pole at Daytona. I think that got him excited that he now is in on those merits as opposed to having to fall back on the prior Clash win.
The Bible Labonte.
So, yeah, exactly. Jeffrey
Special.
Bodine would do that for a while. So that is kind of cool. I'll tell you, the bizarre thing for me to take out of that, you see, we started to see all these multi-car wrecks take place, and I feel like that a lot of the wrecks came as a result of flat tires or just, maybe a little bit of incidental contact of a lead to a tire going down. That was bizarre. But
did you hear the radioactive?
Yes.
That to me was understandable because somebody, who was it that was complaining about getting door slammed a bunch of times?
Might have been the 18. Might have been Kyle Busch.
Spotters talked. And he said, "Oh yeah, the 5 or the 34 said we door slammed him a couple times." And his reply was, "Tell him to get out of the way."
Yeah.
Which, the radioactive is probably one of my favorite post-race things. It's better than a highlight reel for me because
it gives you a whole different perspective.
Exactly.
Well, what are we halfway through the 2017 Monster Energy Cup Series season, and no Joe Gibbs car found victory lane yet?
Yeah, that statistic is shocking. It's actually shocking. In fact, speaking to Josh's point about the radioactive stint.
Were you about to say Kyle Larson?
So, well, no, was I? I was thinking Kyle Busch because at one point, I guess his crew chief, his third interim crew chief of the year, did not inform him that they moved the competition caution when they started the race, and Busch was actually quoted as saying, "I need my crew chief back bad."
Well, you're paraphrasing. There are a few select words in there, but yeah, and I actually found that very amusing, personally. But because it wasn't me in the car.
Now, Kyle Larson, that you bring up,
what happened, man?
That guy's face makes me want to punch it.
Josh is still in his traditional form.
I love Kyle
Larson had one of the most bizarre wrecks that I have ever seen. It seemed like
you mean he wrecked himself?
Well, he came across the bow of Stenhouse, who somehow got out of the way. Larson did him a favor by launching up off the ground. But, Stenhouse ended up going underneath Larson after that car. It looked like it nosed up in the front, and then the back tire looks like it almost rode off the top of Stenhouse, just lifted him up off the ground. It was so weird. I've never seen a car lift like that. And
it was wild. I think that was Larson's fault because I think he moved. I know there was some contact, but I think he moved and then tried to move back, but the car was already there, and
Well, the issue is that Stenhouse made a choice. I'm going to run the outside. Kyle Larson could have said, "Hey, I'm going to run the outside with you," but instead he was like, "I'm going to take the lane underneath you," and then he tried to cut back up when Stenhouse was getting a good run, and he ended up finding the wall again.
Yeah.
Kyle Larson and that front stretch wall at Daytona aren't best of friends.
It happens.
But
I'm reading.
Overall, I thought it was a fantastic race.
That's good. You're not dead. All right.
I kind of like to see what Dale Earnhardt Jr. has left because some say this was kind of his last shot. I was talking to my cousin.
Still got Talladega.
But my cousin made a good point. I told him because, we do the league, Brennan's league, and I picked Elliott Sadler, who was looking pretty good until he got wrecked the last lap. But I'm going to go back to Sonoma real quick because I've been holding off on picking Truex for a while because he's had some good runs, stuff like that. I was so excited because I know he's won Sonoma before. And then I saw he qualified, I think, second, was it? Like, oh, it's going to be a great day. And so he was my pick. He won the first segment, was still up there pretty well for the second segment, and then blew up. Yep.
And I was pissed. So...
Now,
I hate your survivor pool.
I'm struggling in it just as bad.
Your mom's not, though.
That's not a joke, folks. My mother is in the survival pool. I do not help her at all, and she is dominating.
Bull dinkies.
But there's your mom, and then there's your mom.
Yeah, the other your mom is Elliott Wall. To Sam's point about how the Chase grid kind of looks, we got 9 races left till the cutoff. 10 different winners on the season so far. Kyle Busch has the most points of those who have not won. Then it's Chase Elliott and Jamie McMurray. But if you look at some of the guys who have not won, and how about this? This is something that Joey Bailey pointed out to me. We were watching the end of the race the other day. With Joey Logano having all the bad luck that he's had, even though he has that one win, remember it was an encumbered win, which means that it kind of doesn't count minus the money in the trophy. They got to keep that. But
he's not guaranteed to...
He's currently on the outside of that cutoff with 9 races to go. And the more guys that win, the more guys that will bump him further down that running order unless he can get another win, which would not be encumbered, so to say.
And besides Ryan Blaney, those Penske cars are kind of mediocre this year. They weren't kicking ass like they were... Well, Brad Keselowski... And Joe Logano, he's just has some really bad luck. But still, I mean, Ryan Blaney's really carrying that Penske team.
And it's hard to believe that Jimmy Johnson for Hendrick has 3 wins on the season already. In fact, he tops
Why is
the
it not
Chase
hard
Grid
to
standings
believe?
because of the inconsistency of that team. You could
Hendrick
argue
or Jimmy?
that Larson and Truex have been the only 2 constants at the front of the field almost every week. And I honestly think that they could take that all the way through to Homestead.
Absolutely.
And it'd almost be a
it's
coin
just a
toss.
little
You
bit
wanna
of
know
a
what?
sprinkle of
I
Chase
I
here,
disagree.
a little bit of Jimmy there. But
Yeah.
it's
I
consistently-
disagree because especially in this new format, consistency means diddly squat.
And with all the new first-time winners, guys like Stenhouse, Dillon, Blaney, guys who haven't won in a while who ended up grabbing a win, like Kurt Busch, Ryan Newman. You really shake it up this Chase standings. If you take the 4 Gibbs guys, you put them in there. I mean, if they're able to win between now and Richmond,
Which most likely they will.
you're looking at 14 winners, only 2 spots maybe being available on points. If we get down that line, it's going to be tight.
I remember last year when I went to Richmond, the whole talk before was how cars weren't dominating like they were in the beginning of last season. And I remember watching that race and looking at the top 5, and the top 5 were all the 4 Gibbs cars plus Martin Truex, which, as we know, is the Gibbs. And I was sitting there, I was like, these guys, you take them off your radar, and they just seem to kick ass.
And the other amazing thing is that while Truex has been able to stay up here, it seems like the 4 Gibbs cars have fallen down below the performance of that team. And they added Eric Jones, who's been running pretty well. That's more, to me, that's more amazing is you have a driver come in like that who kind of elevates that team. And there's a lot of talk about contracts next year. Brad Keselowski, Matt Kenseth, Eric Jones, handful of other drivers, not quite sure where they're going to land. Junior leaving, Hendrick to retire. Rumors about Casey Kane on the 5, Danica Patrick on the 10. There's a ton of wild things that may shift between now and the 2018 Daytona 500. And I think the biggest one to watch will be that 20 car. I can honestly see Kenseth. There's rumors he may even go over to Hendrick, which seems a little far-fetched to me, but it's possible. And it seems like Gibbs may want Eric Jones back to themselves because you've seen what he's been able to do with a brand-new team. He might be able to elevate that 4-car organization. I don't know.
What about Boyer?
I think Boyer's locked into Stewart Hospital a while,
Boyer
but he's got to get a win.
Thrilled. Yo, I know Nick Grendo will disagree. It is amazing to see Clint Boyer on top of his game. And if you guys if you have a Twitter, you need to follow Clint Boyer and the RPM podcast on Twitter because Clint Boyer is hilarious. I said it on the show before. I'll say it again. He is funny. He is on his game, and he's just ready to have some fun.
Also, on the Xfinity side of things that's taken place recently, we had the race at Iowa a couple weeks ago where William Byron won his first race. So he backed it up by winning at Daytona in a race which seemed like it took nearly an entire day to complete because of the weather just constantly hampering Daytona.
Well, not just
Speedway.
that, but towards the end, and this is for the Cup race and for the Xfinity race. It was mainly at Daytona, but I mean the last 50 laps were just wreck.
It's like a sportsman race.
Yeah.
Elliott Sadler ended up coming home in second, and then a couple of feel-good stories. Dakota Armstrong, Jeb Burton, David Starr rounded out the top 5. Also, the same thing could be said when you go back to Iowa, where you had guys like Ryan Sieg, Dakota Armstrong, Jeb Burton again, who's in that number that I think it's a JGL Motorsports car. It's a team that Carl Long essentially owns. He also got a top 5 finish there, which sparked the rumors that NASCAR may consider banning all Cup drivers from Xfinity and truck competition next year.
Go for it.
Which will be interesting to see if that'll take place.
What about Brendan Gaughan finishing 7th at Daytona? For a team where they weren't even going to make the show.
And that car got into the wall. I think more than once
it was
in
like
that race.
McMurray's car. You got more beat-up cars running up front of Daytona than now you do at Bristol and Martinsville.
Absolutely great
What's up with
stories.
that? I want the duct tape they put on the cars, man.
Yeah.
It's high-valued stuff. Also, Michael McDowell, I think, finished
like
third.
plus 5 horsepower.
Michael McDowell's a very good race car driver. And even in that,
Chase Elliott won't agree with you right now, but I do agree with you.
Who cares what Chase Elliott thinks? I picked Chase. Call the show.
I picked McDowell.
He was a good pick.
Wait, you did? You picked McDowell? Wow. That's actually impressive. I had no idea.
He finished 12th in the Daytona 500. I picked him.
I took Reagan. I was looking good with 3 to go.
Yeah.
Gone.
Where did McDowell end up?
Third.
Yeah.
I believe it was third.
Wow, all right. That's going to help me then.
This week, all 3 series, the Trucks, Xfinity, and the Cup Series, are at Kentucky Speedway on what was once again a newly resurfaced track. Now, we had that last year, but they said there was some problems with the pavement, so they actually had to resurface the entire track over in the offseason. Right now, it looks like Truck Series qualifying has been rained out.
You had one job.
Can't make this up, John.
By the time most of you listen to this, a truck race will probably be in the books, but it will be Xfinity running on Saturday, and the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series running on Friday night, the Cup Series racing Saturday night at Kentucky. as Josh tries to catch his breath.
Yeah,
that
sorry.
pretty much wraps us up for the stock car portion of our program. We're going to take a quick break. We come back on the other side. We'll tap into Nick Rendo, who's been a little bit too quiet on all the happenings in Formula
You're
One.
not talking about Kyle Larson enough.
And after Baku,
I love Kyle Larson. I think he's the way he stays by the wall, never touches it. He's just
well,
phenomenal.
we're going to be talking about his
phenomenal.
sprint car success and also some of the merchandise sales stories that came out as a result of that. Really interesting stuff there. That'll be at the latter portion of our show. But first, we're going to talk about Formula One with Nick so he can get his fill in. Baku gave us plenty of talking points. Lance Stroll got a podium while Josh was in the hospital. Even that happened. That's
Miracles
how
do
long he
happen.
was away. But we're happy to have him
Was he
back.
like in the wall when you went away? I think he was.
I'm trying to think.
When I was in Canada, he put on one hell of a show too.
There was a lot that happened. That's all I
Way
can say.
silent.
I can't even.
And we're also going to talk about IndyCar showing up at Iowa and what we think of the thrilling racing that series has been able to put on some of the ovals so far
Not
this
at
season.
Iowa.
All that and more on the RPM podcast as we're back, but more importantly, Josh is back. Don't go anywhere.
Hey.
Hey everyone, this is Eric Brennan from the RPM Podcast. Want to get in touch with us? Send us an email at racingpodcastnj@gmail.com. And yes, hate mail for Josh is encouraged. Sun's out, guns out, baby. Welcome back to the RPM Podcast. Eric Brennan, Nick Rendo, Sam Ballard Jr., and of course the star of our program, Josh Matthews, as we are trying to touch on pretty much almost everything that has happened in our recent hiatus. And we're going to go back to, I'm looking at my phone because I can't tell what this says. We're going to go back to the Formula One race at Baku because we have our F1 aficionado Rendo on hand with us this afternoon. And the storylines from Baku did kind of bleed all the way into this week, including over the last 2 days. And it was, in fact, just announced that there will be no additional penalty handed down for some of the controversy that took place. But I'm not going to try to explain it. I'm going to let you try to explain it, Nick, if you're up for it.
I am, yeah. Well, first, I would just like to say 2 weeks before Azerbaijan, I was in Canada, and it was an amazing race, and they put on like an amazing show. So that was really, really, really awesome. But yeah, so lights out at Azerbaijan. On the start, it was, I believe the qualifying was Hamilton on pole, Bottas, and then the two Ferraris. Kimi and Bottas always seem to find each other because in, I think, 2 corners in, they already had taken each other out. So now you basically had Hamilton in the lead and Vettel a few seconds back. That kind of stayed for about 10 laps or so until the first crash. I don't even remember what it was because there were so many crashes. So it was a safety car, and Lewis was actually complaining with the safety car, saying how it was going much too slow and it was making it very dangerous with the tires to keep heating them and also the brakes to keep heating them. So he was saying that they should have a virtual safety car, and he personally believed that they were doing it just to have the wreck fest going. So that's like a pretty controversial thing. So the safety
race
car,
wasn't very exciting last year, so maybe they were trying to keep the cars together.
yeah, and plus with that extremely tight turn, now that we know that the cars are longer, wider, and faster.
It wouldn't be an RPM podcast, not Nick reiterating that.
And actually, they all did not make it through this time. I think there was at least like 3 accidents in it throughout the weekend. So really, really cool stuff there. Then another safety car comes out. And actually, here's where things got interesting. During the safety car, Lewis slowed down in the apex. He did. That's like telemetry
He did
proven.
Well, I'm Apex, or he
the-
didn't
at the
accelerate
apex,
off the
yeah.
turns.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like way too much. I think he lost like 20 kilometers an hour. So Vettel, not expecting this in second, ended up running into the back of him under safety car. Then, without like a snap, he comes alongside him and actually, to everyone's surprise, drove into the side of him under safety car. I mean, like
in an open wheel car.
Yeah, like
These are not stock cars with fenders, folks. It's Formula One we're talking about, like multi-million-dollar pieces
Best
of
drivers
machinery.
in the world.
yeah,
So, literally the best drivers in the world.
Pretty incredible stuff there. He actually slotted back in behind Lewis after that. The safety car comes in, going down the massive long front stretch. He had Massa to his inside, and I don't even remember who. I think a Force India to his outside because he had front wing damage, lack of downforce from running into Lewis. Lewis had damage not on the side of his car because the tires ended up touching, but Vettel's car actually got a little bit airborne. It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But he definitely had diffuser damage. Then within half a lap, there was another huge accident with the 2 Force Indias managing to take each other out again, and there was a lot of controversy in Canada, actually, and something else happened. I think it was like Verstappen braking. It was so long ago, I really can't remember.
Right.
But so this red flag actually comes out now because there was so much debris. So everyone's like, oh my God, red flag. Unlike in NASCAR, in Formula One, you can work on your car under red flag. So they came down, they basically redid, with carbon fiber, Lewis's back and obviously changed Vettel's front wing.
Right.
The drivers didn't even look at each other. Everyone was wondering, what's going to happen in the pits, but they didn't even look at each other or anything. So after that, they come back out on the track, and Lewis gets a really good start after the safety car. And then within 3 laps, his headrest, the rubber piece around them, starts to come up. And he managed to keep it down in the turns, but just on the extremely long straights, they have like a negative G-force thing in their cockpit. And obviously, he just couldn't keep it up. And it was a safety hazard, so they said he basically had to pit.
Yes.
So he comes down, and everyone's like, oh my God, Lewis is going to go out. It's like maybe back to 10th. And Vettel's now leading the race, and he's the points leader. So this is going to be a huge, huge swing in the points.
Right.
Within half a lap, they say Vettel has a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for dangerous driving, and he actually doesn't know where he did that. I don't really either, to be honest with you. I don't think anyone in Italy does. So he has to serve his 10-second penalty, but much to the delight of the Tifosi and the Red Grandstands, he came out in front of Lewis Hamilton. So now you literally have the 2 people, 1 and 2 in points, 1 and 2 on track, 8th and 7th. Absolutely incredible. They start working through the field, the 2 of them, and towards the end of the race, they worked up to 4th and 5th. There's a little bit more on that, so I'll get to that. But the winner, Ricciardo, Stroll had an amazing run and literally over the line lost second to Valtteri Bottas. So Lance Stroll on the podium.
Did he just kind of move? Sometimes like when they're about to, let's say it's the leader, they're coming to the line and they run off out of the racing line to go up closer to the flag or whatever it is. And a lot of times they lift and slow up because they have like a 10-second gap.
Yeah.
Was he doing that? I swear he wasn't up to full speed. It didn't look like he was on the throttle. Something seemed up.
I heard something about that. I don't know. I mean, the Mercedes probably had a lot of power coming up in the slipstream and everything, but that's very, very, very well a possibility.
Because he definitely was out of the racing line when he came up and got past.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was trying to take the inside to block, but obviously they're not going into the corner because they're just going over the stripe. Yeah. So you're definitely right. It was something really, really weird. But the big story leaving that was Vettel and Hamilton. If there should be more penalization on Vettel going forward. Now,
they both should hit each other more.
Well, yeah, actually, Toto Wolff said that no one liked to see them, and I quote, smooching, and he was okay with like the gloves being off on the 2 of them.
Yeah,
but
should be.
Well,
not hitting race cars.
Yeah. But definitely,
there's no excuse for retaliation in race cars.
Well, okay, so a lot of people have talked about it. My favorite one.
Get out and punch him in the face.
The guy who I agree with the most is Helmut Marko, the guy who owns Red Bull, the racing team. He basically says that Hamilton, he believes, not brake checked Vettel in order to cause a collision, but just brake to kind of throw him off of his game a little bit.
Now, mind you, folks, Rendo is high on the Ferrari bandwagon. Keep that in mind. It's like watching CNN. Okay, you know what you're getting into when you turn that on. So take Rendo's analysis here for what it is.
All right, well, here's where I'm going to say. Everyone said that Vettel let his emotions get in charge of him. I don't think so. I think it was an extremely calculating and brilliant move, and I'm going to explain why. It wasn't his anger that made him hit him. I think that when he ran into the back of him and he had his wing damage, he basically said, okay, this guy just brake checked me. Maybe he wanted to hit me, maybe he didn't. But either way, I have to go in the pits now. I have to go back to last, out of the points, and this guy's going to take the points lead after he did this to me under safety car. Not going to happen. So I think he came alongside of him and tried to either hit the side pod or the front wing and actually missed and made their tires hit, which didn't impact Hamilton's car at all, just Vettel's. So now you would say, why would he do that? He got the penalty and everything. Well, think about this. Who can predict a red flag in any form of racing, let alone Formula One? So had there been a red flag and he knew there was going to be a red flag in half a lap, I'm sure he would not have cut out and done that to Hamilton and risk a penalty because he would have got his front wing changed and Hamilton would have worked on his car. Yeah. But not knowing that a red flag was coming, for the greater picture, for the championship, for the millions of dollars online, I think he said, he just damaged my car. Even if you're a Mercedes fan, you really can't argue that. And if I'm going back and I have to go into the pits, he's coming with me.
Mind you, this happened like a split half a second?
Yes, in 3 seconds. And our other race car driver here, Josh, can say how much goes on in 3 seconds in our head.
No, a lot
does. We have to think faster than the race car.
Let's be honest now. Sebastian Vettel's not a god.
I think that's very logical in 3 seconds.
Lewis Hamilton just hit me. I'm going to hit him back to show him that I'm... he did. There was a clear break in speed. Brake check, whatever you want to call it. it happened. It shouldn't have happened either way. Lewis Hamilton should have got penalized, but in my opinion, now not a race car driver or a Ferrari fan, Sebastian Vettel should have gotten penalized more than what Lewis Hamilton did.
Yeah, well, I think he could definitely have had that thought in 3 seconds because John Force's run and all these top fuel guys are 4 seconds. So imagine all the thoughts that they have in 4 seconds. I mean, this is 75% of that run basically. And I know from my racing it was a 7-second pass, and in 3 seconds I definitely could have thought that out for sure. Should he have been penalized more? Should he have been penalized less? That's the question. Personally, I think it's a little bit controversial because I think that when you had them running 1 and 2. It wasn't even under investigation. There was no penalty happening because you had the points leaders racing each other. Suddenly, when Lewis had his, headrest come up, and now he's back to 10th, and Vettel's leading, and he's already the points leader, and it's going to make the points not tight at all. It's going to make a huge gap between them. Suddenly, he gets a 10-second penalty to put them right back next to each other driving through the field. I don't know. It sounds a little bit fishy to me because they didn't have a penalty going when they were racing 1 and 2 together. So.
Do you guys think that this is what F1 needs? 2 world champions beating the crap out of each other with their cars?
Well, I think
it's entertaining.
Yeah, and you can't argue that. Now, we've already been thrilled at the fact that Vettel and Hamilton have been going back and forth all year long with collecting race wins and keeping the points as tight as
I think it's Ferrari and Mercedes. It's just been thrilling to watch.
Yeah, and it's because usually we're used to seeing 2 drivers of the same team going at it over the last few years, which was really Hamilton and Rosberg the entire time. Now we have 2 constructors that are battling it out, and it kind of adds to that storyline. The hatred is good, in my opinion. My question is, it seems like that the decision as to whether or not to hand down an additional penalty on Vettel, now I wouldn't have gone so far as a 1-race ban or anything like that because, Formula One, they might as well just take the gun and shoot themselves in the head because you're going to neuter the fact that we're going to have an epic championship battle
just on
throughout
Monday.
the rest of the year. Why kill that now if you're going to go that far with it? But there probably should have been something else done because telemetry backed up.
What if this happens again? What is the FIA going to do after that?
That's the thing, and I think that you can't.
What if there is no
argue
red flag?
That these two.
What are they going to do?
I think these two are going to race each other harder now for the rest of the year. But they said that the decision to not put a bigger penalty on it was because Vettel apologized to Hamilton, which we later found out was just a text message that he sent to him. So I'm not in favor of that
Lewis
either.
actually said at the end of the race that he didn't even have my number. So I wonder who gave it to him.
And Lewis Hamilton's phone number has got to be a pretty hard thing to get.
Twitter's a powerful thing, though.
Yeah.
And Lewis is always on Snap. Maybe Sebastian Vettel just snapped him. Hey, man.
Seb does
sorry.
not believe in social media.
But I think it's something that's going to continue
Well,
on.
I just met him in Canada, and he really is a great guy. And I would hate to have seen anything happen
Nick,
to him.
next time you see him, why don't you ask him, hey, how'd you get Lewis Hamilton's phone number?
But
I was over there.
But the thing is, they had the press conference today in Austria, and everything seems to be back to normal between them. Pretty tense, but there's still a great respect between the 2 drivers, and you can definitely tell that. So it's going to be amazing on Sunday to see how we move forward from this. And just last year in Austria was when, Nico made up his own Apex. So it was a thriller last year. So it should be
made his own
really,
Apex.
really cool this year.
I like that, Nick. I like that.
Did you call him Nick or
Nick?
Something that rhymes with it.
No, I called him Nick.
Okay,
Slick
it sounded
Nick.
like something.
Josh thought he was going to have to do some editing there. Now, Ricciardo winning the race, as far as I'm concerned, is probably the best thing that's happened in quite some time because he's the most charismatic figure that Formula One has. And having him win, it's just like James Hinchcliffe in IndyCar. It's good for the sport.
I think Kimi Räikkönen is the most charismatic F1 driver.
The most sarcastically charismatic Formula One driver that there is.
Side note.
Well, can we talk about the Sir Patrick Stewart of Star Trek fame?
Exactly what I was going to get
drinking out of the shoe as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
That happened right. It was awesome.
That is so nasty.
But that was so awesome of him to do.
Nasty.
I mean, you can't have.
No, you're right.
Respect.
It is pretty. It's pretty.
It's out
badass,
there.
but yes.
Yeah, I mean, here's some guy's shoe that he was just wearing and getting all sweaty in a race car, and I'm going to drink out of it.
Would you do a shoey with the Daniel Ricciardo?
Yeah,
Nick Brendo?
of course. All the alcohol would kill everything anyway. But just incredible. I can't believe how many people were at Canada. We had George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and him. Just the thing, at the start of the race, Max just comes from 4th and just slices off the front nose of Vettel. I don't understand what his problem is. I cannot stand him at all. So I just definitely wanted to get that out. A little bit of therapy there. It's just absolutely absurd. 13 laps later, so his gearbox broke, and I could not have been happier.
Hold on. What the hell does that mean?
That's not biased or anything.
Just saying. It was absolutely absurd. But Austria, though, it really is going to be exciting. So
It's a fast, fun track.
Yeah, no, there's
Bumpy.
an amazing last corner where it's almost like full speed, so it's going to be really cool to see them this year with the more mechanical grip being, wider, faster, and all the fun stuff. So it's really, really cool.
Nick Rendo and I were driving down here today, and he looked at me and he goes, "You see that Dodge Caravan in front of us?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Those F1 cars, they're wider than that." That's nice to know, Nick.
Did
That's
actually
nice
happen.
to know.
Stay close to for sure. As Nick said, Formula One will be in Austria this weekend after a week off.
Yeah, McLaren Honda's not any better. Actually, side note, I'm sure you all know, Fernando did the Indy 500 with Honda.
He did?
It broke.
It broke.
So I had to get that out.
It did. And it sounds like Fernando may not be returning to Indy, at least from the early indications of what he
But
said.
he might be going to Ferrari.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Cat's out of the
That's
bag.
the thing.
It's
I don't
official
know.
now.
Just don't want to dive too deep in that story because I
That
feel like it's a
frightens me more than
little
Two Girls,
bit,
One Cup.
little bit shaky. But maybe in the weeks to come, we can do something. We'll really discuss like body language and personalities and all that stuff.
Oh, I can't wait.
A lot of things to look at and look forward to.
Is
as
that going to be
Formula
after
One
the
season
Shakira
continues.
concert?
The Shakira concert is
Shakira
in
is the definition of body
January.
language, Josh.
very excited.
I just had to throw it out there.
Now, in other bits of open wheel racing news, the IndyCar Series season is going to continue this Sunday at Iowa Speedway. Terrible start time. 5 p.m. Eastern is when that race is going to
For
go
a
green.
terrible race.
It's actually been one of the most competitive IndyCar Series seasons in quite some time. 10 races so far, 8 different winners, only 2 drivers being able to win more than one race this season so far. Scott Dixon sits atop the championship point lead ahead of Simon Pagenaud. Third place is Elio Castroneves, still looking for his first win in quite some time. And the Indy 500 winner Takuma Sato currently sits 4th in points as they head to the second short oval race of 3 on the IndyCar Series calendar. Now, expectations are that this race may match the dullness of the 2016 race due to the fact there really has been minimal aero changes. That was a complaint that Graham Rahal had about Phoenix, in which Simon Pagenaud dominated back in April. But the biggest talking point that I want to get into is the oval on-track product, which will kind of coincide to the NASCAR product we see at Daytona and to the race that we saw in Texas. Now, there are 3 oval races left on the IndyCar Series calendar. 2 of them are short ovals, Iowa and Gateway. The other one, if you can call it an oval, is with Big Track of Pocono, which take place on August 20th. With that, we've seen a lot of breathtaking action and accidents on the big tracks, such as Indy and Texas. My question to you 3 is that when you watch those products, and I'm bringing this up because this is something that Josh was incredibly passionate about while he was locked away in his hospital bed watching this race the old school way without much technology around him to enjoy
What are you
it.
talking about? I didn't get half the channels on the crappy TV system they had, so I had to log into my parents' Xfinity account and watch it on my laptop.
Watching it the new school way
Yeah,
in order to
that's
keep
right.
tabs with it.
Yeah, you got to take better notes.
The race in Texas, described by Sebastian Bourdais, and I'm not going to use the whole word because I don't want to give you more work to do, as BS, described by many of the drivers as a total mess, was enjoyed by a lot, including
I
you.
thought it was an excellent race to watch because they were side by side, lap after lap, almost touching. I mean, to me, that was thrilling and engaging and nonstop, and I loved watching it. As a driver, when you're trying really hard to pass, somebody, I've had a blast. And also been incredibly frustrated. Neil Rutt III and I have, for some reason, when he and I get side by side, we can't pass each other, it seems. And we will be there for lap after lap. And you'll think you almost have them, and then you don't. And, the slightest little slip up, it's crazy. But I love doing it. I'm racing with a friend, and I'm having a blast. But at the same time, it's also like, God damn it, pass me or let me pass you.
Right.
And help you.
Yeah, but that's part of racing is you want to pass the guy, but then there's also, well, if I could drop in behind him and then we could both pass somebody else or something like that. But I see where there could be a little frustration from the drivers, but they seem overwhelmingly against the product, the whole race product that they have at Texas, and I think it's probably the best IndyCar race to watch all year. I don't care about balloons. I don't care about anybody singing. I think the action there, 30 seconds.
He just looked at you like this.
I don't
Leave
care.
my balloons alone.
I don't care. I'm saying that I think one lap at Texas is better than the entire race at Indy.
Now, do you guys think that it's... I agree with you, Josh. 100%. Do you think it's luck, or do you think it's just the way the setups and everything, the chemistry with the drivers and the track and the cars?
I think I thought the
wind
drivers.
blows?
Well, it's a lot of things. And I know the drivers are complaining mostly about the aero package being to blame for this, but the drivers seem to be doing a hell of a job of not wrecking. I mean, there were a few wrecks. It happens. I mean, you can't control it necessarily. Sometimes a tire blows, things like that, if you hit a piece of debris. But I thought, I mean, we're talking literally an inch or so away sometimes, and they're still going at it 200-something miles an hour into the turn. And to me, it's amazing and incredibly frightening to do that. I mean, it's a big risk. I mean, you're the slightest slip up, and you're getting sent off into the wall or something like that. And we saw, wasn't it Newgarden that hurt his shoulder?
Yeah, I know he got on the wall pretty hard because he tried to.
Well, I meant
up
last year when
lane,
it was when they ended up having to postpone the rest of the race.
Yes, that's when the car got up on its side and he hit the cockpit first.
Yeah, and that was a frightening wreck. But outside of, I think that they should have something along the lines of a halo or something else for the driver protection. It's still a thrilling race, and the drivers are bashing the best part of the product that they have for trying to in a series that's trying to draw fans because the stands are empty.
That's because you're making them earn their money.
And I think that you guys actually both bring up the best points to talk about this, and the reactionary, the responses that came from some of the media personalities that cover the sport, like Robin Miller, Marshall Pruitt. It seemed to be like a double-edged sword. Like Robin talked to it about, like watching a train wreck. Like you don't want to see it, but you can't look away, and that's what IndyCar was known for. I mean, they knew it to the sense of like, when you sit down, if you go all the way back to even to the early 2000s to the late 2000s, when we would see pack racing with these open wheel cars, and I think back then it was worse because you couldn't pass the guy. It was just like you and Neil, Josh. You get alongside somebody, and that's as far as you can go. It seemed like that, at least with the races that we've seen over the last few years with the DW12 car, which, by the way, is going by the wayside by next year because they'll have new body work on these cars. But, think back to Fontana of 2015. My buddy Jim texted me. He said that was the best race I have ever seen, ever. In person, on television. He said I could not leave I couldn't leave at all. I couldn't get up, couldn't turn away. Texas was like that too. And now Texas was a combination of new track surface. The tires were not holding up, which is because they only had 1 day of testing there. I'll blame the series for that. Can't blame the track for having to resurface their speedway.
The series has, and you've said it a number of times, shot themselves in the foot on multiple occasions, over and over again, just dumb moves. And now you did share an article with us. I can't remember. You'll have to cite it for me about when you look at the winnings, like the purse, and what they're getting out of this after putting these cars and the drivers at risk, compared to the money that you'll get from NASCAR.
Right.
And like NASCAR, they can just about build a new car for, what they get for finishing last. And IndyCar, for what you get finishing first, you got maybe a set of tires.
Yeah, and that was the point. I believe it was Robin Miller who put that out there. The story was printed on Racer Magazine quickly after the race concluded, and I don't remember the exact figures, but he pretty much said, first place gets X amount of dollars, second, third, fourth place gets a ham sandwich and a handshake, and everybody on back gets less than that. So it's kind of bizarre how the pay structure is. IndyCar has this thing called a Leader Circle program, which is where a lot of the money goes. It's to try to promote teams who try to show up to all the races and run everything they can just so they can assure that they'll have full-time teams all year long. But I think it may be time to rethink that structure because guys are putting their lives on the line essentially for, like Josh said, just nickels and dimes. There's nothing there. The incentive to win is there, which is pretty much all they live for anyway. But the risk is certainly not, equaling
at those speeds
with the reward.
in those cars. I do see where the drivers could be upset about, that type of racing. But at the same time, if it's going to change, you need to draw fans to that series, and if you don't have exciting racing or a good product to engage the fans, it's like you said, double-edged sword. You need more fans to make more money to change things, but then again, if you change that product, you're going to lose the fans.
Exactly. So I feel like they have a good product. Now, this is all going to be a moot point when we get to 2018 because they'll have the new car in play. But it opens up the topic of discussion, same thing in NASCAR. I mean, is that product what racing is all about, or does it borderline on stupidity because you're just kind of waiting for somebody to get hurt? Or could some counter-argue that at those type of tracks, which is how Indy cars got started, they got started on ovals back in the day, is it possible to protect drivers from all the risk? And I guess where do you draw the line? I think Texas was kind of walking on that line. I don't know if they went over it, and I don't think they weren't under it because they caused about $2 million in damage, according to some of the estimates that we've seen in some of the wrecks.
Entire teams taken out.
And a lot of it was due to drivers' aggression. You know, sometimes when drivers feel too safe, they're willing to do things that they wouldn't have done back in the day because they knew what the consequences was.
So are you advocating taking safety away?
No, but and I've cited this story
Sounds
before.
like he is.
I did.
Tom Jensen,
I had to put you on the spot like that.
Who, by the way, if anybody out there is looking for a motorsports writer, pick up Tom Jensen like now. He was victim of the new transformation of Fox Sports, where they went to a more like video. It's like they're going to have more video commentary instead of like written articles and whatnot. So Jensen got the axe, similar to what was going on at the ESPN. So if you're looking for somebody to write stories for you, Tom Jensen's your guy. Now, he put out a story about a couple years ago talking about the importance of the dangers in racing. And Tony Stewart touched on it and said that it's the danger element, the fact that you have something to lose other than a position on the racetrack, that's what makes you want to watch. It's what separates them from us because they have the balls to do it and we don't. Or in this case, I don't. And I think, Sam, you may qualify for that as well. These two kind of do. So
give me a shot, somebody. I'll drive your race car.
Yeah, and that's why the old adage is,
I'll do it for free.
Racing is a balance of brake, throttle, and balls.
Just drive the car.
So with that being said, you know, once you put everyone in some type of invincible protective bubble and you remove that element from it, what separates them from the guys on the street? So that's the central point of that. The element of danger has to be there, and I think it's highlighted mostly on the oval races for the IndyCar.
I think that's anything you do, though. I mean, anything you do in life, it's the thrill of, oh my gosh, I'm listening to the RPM podcast. Did he just say that?
Yeah, it's
something like that. Something stupid like that. I mean, that's what drives people to do dumb things.
It's the element of risk and danger. And
I got dumped.
It's kinky.
We're starting to cross into a different
It just
realm.
popped in there.
And that's it. We're done. We're back to natural form.
I think IndyCar is in trouble, and I think they're. You guys ever seen the movie Bubble Boy?
Wait, which one? The one with John Travolta or the one with
No,
was that
I
Jake
haven't.
Gyllenhaal?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think IndyCar's Bubble Boy. I think they're trying to protect what it has, not wanting to realize that it can grow from kind of letting others influence what goes on. You know what I'm saying?
I see what you're getting at.
Probably makes no sense.
It's an overprotective mother.
Well, and apparently the television ratings for that Texas race were a lot higher than they were last year.
Well, did you see the finish of last year?
So,
Oh my goodness.
and well, yeah, of course.
That
but
onboard shot.
Oh my
that's-
God, that's my favorite thing to watch.
The status quo is of keeping that on-track product intact is important. I think it's vital for the sport's growth. So if you try to neuter it again, like we're going to see at Iowa this weekend, and I'm gonna watch. If I'm home, I'm gonna watch. Even if I'm not home, I'm gonna try to watch it on my phone.
You're over there.
Because I want to see how it all pans out in Iowa, because that used to be one of the best races of the year. Now, if they're going to continue to run the same aero package they ran last year and at Phoenix this year, I expect it to be a dud. It's going to be terrible.
What did Albert Einstein say? The whole insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Story of my life. Sam.
Amen.
Story of my
You
life.
preach.
And on that note,
Preach.
we will wrap up our open wheel segment of the program. Rendo got his Formula One fill, so he's good to go.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, got the biceps starting to work in.
Bro,
Looking
you're telling
good.
me. Thanks, dude.
Thank
too,
you for
man.
watching the RPM
Dressed to
podcast.
death.
Yeah,
We
you
come
look
back to the
really
other
good,
side.
too.
We're going to talk about our short track moments, including the hot streak that Kyle Larson has been on, upsetting the Pennsylvania posse this past week. All that and more when we come back
More
to the final
Larson?
segment of the RPM podcast. Don't go anywhere.
Got a question you want answered? Email us at racingpodcastnj@gmail.com.
Welcome back to the RPM podcast. I'm thinking back if I just did
It
it.
feels good to be back, boys.
Just to give you a little bit of little background as to what we're going through here in terms of production. So Josh, in between segments, has to take a little bit of a break and lie down in order to try to alleviate some of the pressure he's got going on in his head. Probably from hearing my voice too damn much.
That's not helping.
But if you want to talk about somebody who's dedicated, that's your guy. I'm thrilled, Josh. Absolutely thrilled we're able to do this again.
I'm thrilled to be home.
It's
not sitting in that
and so are
damn
we.
hospital.
And we're thrilled to be in your homes.
And again, as we told you earlier, there is a GoFundMe page that is up as well to try to help Josh with some of the astronomical medical expenses. But more importantly, we will be having a fundraiser at the Chapter House Bar and Grill in Howell that will be taking place on Sunday, July 16th from the hours of 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. We'll all be enjoying the Monster Energy Cup Series race from New Hampshire together. There'll also be adult big wheel races, which I am definitely looking forward to.
I have to
Are you
film that.
participating?
So you could bet I'll be participating.
Who's the bigger wheel?
So I don't know.
No, he's the third wheel. That's the problem.
That's accurate. That's incredibly accurate. Also, there'll be food, drink specials, a whole bunch more. And again, the majority of that all gives the credit to Jeff Lane, Eric Lane, and Melanie Lane for putting it all together. As
Did
well
you
as
say the
people from
date?
Chapter
It was
House. It'll be Sunday, July 16th.
Losers.
From 12 to 8. And Sam will be in Indianapolis.
So it should be a guaranteed good time, folks.
Yeah, again,
That's pretty much what he's saying.
Not going to be doing a live show there. We'll have race cars there to kind of hang out. Hopefully Josh is clear to come and join us there as well. And we'll be doing a lot
No
for
sick
a really
people.
good guy. Yeah, and if you have a cold, stay home.
Sick in the head.
Or just stay away from me.
Yeah, or just stay on the opposite side of the bar.
I have like no immune system right now. That's the whole part of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into it too much, but did I send you the picture of Lisa holding the 2 prescriptions?
Yes.
With how
Yes,
much
you did.
I had everybody guessing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's just I don't know. It gets me infuriating how much that stuff costs. It doesn't make sense.
But it's also, think about it, a great marketing tool. You want this, or do you want to die?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's like when you bring your animal to the vet. They got you. It's your pet. You'll
yeah.
You'll pay any amount of money to save it. And
which I think is. We're here talking about racing.
We're shifting into politics.
I have an Italian Greyhound. We're going to talk about dog racing, okay?
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Now, we normally reserve the final spot of the program to talk about some local stuff.
Wait,
now, there was
Stoli's Italian?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
That's awesome.
We try not to use the I word too much.
Oh, no kidding. Wow. This has made my night.
Now, one of the biggest short track stories in this section of the country over the last few days was a dominant National Cup Series star, Kyle Larson. In fact, he had a hot streak of him winning 6 410 sprint car races come to an end on Wednesday.
So talented.
When it was Lance DeWeese who ended up grabbing the win at Hagerstown to kind of break the trend that Larson was on. Here's the thing that if you don't know much about sprint car racing, especially in Pennsylvania, there is a group of traveling 410 sprint car series driver. They're kind of dubbed as the Pennsylvania Posse, known to just kind of kick butt wherever they seem to roll. It's usually when an outsider comes in on their territory and does well, like Larson did, it could ruffle some feathers. However, it didn't ruffle the feathers of the fans. Apparently, in one night, Larson had his merchandise trailer make about $13,000 in a single night of selling T-shirts and hats and other parts of Larson's
And you wonder
fan
why
base.
he wins. He's got the best damn equipment. He had all the money to back it up.
We should get him to wear one of our hats.
We should.
One of our
That are incoming.
T-shirts.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm kicking myself that I didn't go to this to go meet him. That would have been so sick.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
instead, I was in Cape May.
We were
Like,
I would have
so far
but
away.
also, you had Rico Abreu there. You had Casey Kane.
Tony
I would
Stewart's going to
have.
be there later in August.
Former driver Tyler Walker was also in the field after he had what looked like a promising career until he failed.
But here's something. Is this okay for these guys to be doing? Because all I can think about is every time I hear one of these races, I can't help but think about Leffler down at Bridgeport.
Well, and it has not been the safest of weeks in the short track world. In fact, one driver was killed in a USAC sanctioned event. Another driver was severely injured in a 600 micro sprint accident at the same track in which Larson was competing at. So the risk is there. I will say, however, give credit, all the credit in the world, and I want to go into this merchandise story a little bit further if we can, but give credit to Larson, who apparently was able to either work his contract or work his car owner enough to be able to go do this. Something in which he doesn't make a ton of money doing, he just likes doing it, which is why if you flash back a few months ago, Larson was quoted as saying, "I think I am one of the last true racers in NASCAR." And I agree with it. There's nothing in it for him to do this except for the thrill to compete. Something that we saw Tony
So it has
Stewart
nothing to do
for
with
years.
$13,000 at the merch trailer.
That's with the merchandise sales. But
So I think there's something in it right there.
but here's where it gets a little bit
If
interesting.
we were ever to become popular enough with this show or anything else that we could go and sell merch, not just because people, our small core fan base here, but, let's say it went national or got syndicated somehow. There's incentive right there that, if we could bring merchandise and actually walk home with like, wow, that's going to buy us a new speaker or something like that.
No, I mean, 13
that's
grand
still small
is 13 grand. And here's what was surprising. Larson eventually tweeted after a fan pointed out that figure. More than I've made all year in NASCAR sales. And that kind of opened up a little bit of topic of research for some reporters.
Uh-oh.
And Nate Ryan of NBC Sports put together a really detailed article about how the NASCAR industry and merchandising appears to work. And I'll quote here directly just 2 segments from the article. I won't go into it completely. Larson could have sold 25 times as much in NASCAR gear over the first 17 Cup races and probably still lag behind his take-home pay as a dirt track megastar. While their grossing can be much higher, many NASCAR drivers' merchandise income isn't commensurate with the biggest stars in dirt track racing. When NASCAR's merchandising booms at its peak more than a decade ago, a top star's revenue share hovered at $3 to $4 million annually. Now virtually all are below $1 million, and many aren't even cracking 6 figures. Meanwhile, a World of Outlaws championship might pull up to $1 million, and a top dirt late model racers could take home hundreds of thousands in T-shirt sales. So the premise is that the NASCAR merchandising at least the whole entire structure, which is now kind of operated by fanatics who took over a lot of the printing of the shirts and the hats, and they even had that tent for a while, and they now reverted back to souvenir trucks. It appears to be broken, and Larson has kind of done a good job at highlighting it.
How many races are they running versus NASCAR, though?
Well, usually it's a lot more. I think a World of Outlaws schedule could maybe not the official schedule, but a 410 sprint car driver. Think back to Brian Clausen when he was running winged and non-winged events. He was trying to run 200 races in a single year.
Yeah, so I think we have to take that into account when you talk about how many people, when you get a big name in, and you're going to get X amount of those fans. Some may like him, some may hate him, like me. But they're going to buy from that trailer that night, and then, how many nights a week is he going to be racing? Look at total races.
And I guess that's where you make your money because the payouts aren't as good. I mean, just like any other short track series. I mean, the payouts just are not where they typically are, But back to Larson and his decision to run in these races. What do you guys make of that? I mean, a lot of people made a big deal about Fernando coming to run the Indy 500. Why risk because, the Indy 500 is one of the most dangerous races in the world. At highest average speed.
All those balloons.
Yeah, the balloons.
Yeah, they get sucked right into the side pods.
Those damn birds.
I have a good answer. I think as a race car driver, mental momentum is very important. And I think that, if there's only a NASCAR race every week, and obviously the competition is so tight that obviously you're not going to win, every week. Just having those races in the middle of the week where you're winning. Like, for instance, he just had the bad race in Daytona, right? So going into whatever race is on Sunday, he's not going to have a lot of momentum going for him. He actually got off of a really bad start. But now Kyle Larson is getting in his 42 car, a winner. The last car he got out of, he came out in victory lane. That's a lot of mental momentum.
Well, he didn't
and
win
that
last
is
night.
a very important thing.
Well,
no, but typically, yeah,
I
see Brando's point. Yeah.
I see what you're getting at, but maybe it's the chemo talking on my end, but I would be too exhausted to run that type of schedule, plus have the pressure of the sponsor obligations and all that from the NASCAR.
My dad always said about Carl Edwards when he was running the Busch Series and winning almost every Saturday. He was so competitive on Sunday, and then when he gave that up, it really seemed like he lost something.
I think you two bring up both valid points, but I think it matters on the person. Look at Jimmy Johnson. There's a reason why he doesn't dip down and down and go racing here and there.
You're right. It definitely depends on the personality.
A reason for it.
You're right. Someone like Jimmy Johnson probably maybe wouldn't benefit from, but someone like Kyle Larson, Carl Edwards, Tony Stewart clearly does. And so it really just depends.
We forget because he has a kid and in a serious relationship. Kyle Larson's relatively young. He still wants to strap into a race car and do what he loves with his life. And going back to what your point being, if someone offered me, hey, I got a car for you, you want to run it? I don't care what's on the line. That's what I want to do with my life.
If I didn't have to do all the setup stuff, maybe. But I also look at it as, from his, let's say, primary job, which I'm going to say it that way because NASCAR is, not
career.
merch sales, but, career-wise,
Yes.
that's what's getting his name out there. That's probably his biggest initial paycheck. You want to protect your investment. If you're hiring a driver, I understand them not wanting him to go and race the. I mean, I want to race a lot of things. But I do not want to race a sprint car because that is like asking to be killed.
Chip Ganassi is protecting his assets. He has to protect Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson is the only thing that's holding Chip Ganassi together, and I'll be the first one to say that.
Okay.
Now, that's a really good point, Sam, and I guess that'll lead me back into this question. Is giving a driver the freedom to do what Larson's been able to do, and I'm sure it's against Chip's will. I'm sure if he had the option, he would want Larson to spend, Monday through Friday prepping for the upcoming, races in the stock car. But is giving a driver that type of option a little bit of a luring point? Hey, if you stay with me, right, when Larson was a really big-time free agent, it's going to come up again soon. I'll let you go run those sprint car races while some of the other guys may not do that. That could be a deal breaker for a guy like Larson.
They talked about this a few weeks ago, and I think Richard Childress or Rick Hendrick, one of those guys, I could be complete talking on my butt, but I think one of those guys turned around and said, hey, if Kyle Larson wants to come race for me, I don't care what he does.
Right.
Because I want him in my race car. And does Chip Ganassi really care about Kyle Larson as a driver and what he wants, or does he care more about his business? Does he want one of his cars' best shot of winning every weekend, every Sunday?
I think it depends also on the driver, because the fact of the matter is if Jamie McMurray wanted to do that, Chip Ganassi probably wouldn't let him. If Jenson Button or whatever his teammate is, Van Dorn, wanted to go run the Indy 500, they probably wouldn't let him. So I think it really depends on the driver and how much, negotiating say he has in the contract.
But don't you think a guy like Chip Ganassi would tell a guy more, Jamie McMurray, who's been in the sport for, almost 20 years, hey, you can do whatever you want, don't worry about it, to Kyle Larson, who, honestly, is the future of NASCAR. Wouldn't he be more, hey, you're mine, stay here?
Yeah, but when you get such a high-profile person who has so many people who wants him, he has so much more negotiating power.
But you can argue to a point that Chip Ganassi is the reason why Kyle Larson is who he is today. Because Rick Hendrick passed up on Kyle Larson. I heard, he might be able to go because he was with Turner for the longest time in the 32,
Yep.
and that was a Hendrick team.
It's not like when you do first round draft picks and things like that. It's not. I mean, it's a different system. So to pass somebody up is still. I don't know.
Yeah, could you imagine if NASCAR had a draft like that? How cool would that be?
Oh God, Graham would sit there and enjoy it. I have to make it stay so I can watch the draft.
Yeah, he would. He would be into that.
I love him, but I do not get that at all. That's got to be. That's like watching the Barrett Jackson auctions. Like, yay, a nice car. Ooh, a lot of money that I don't have. Yay. I get nothing out of that.
Some people are into it, just like some people are into going to run sprint car races. More power to him. And I mean, Nick, you touched on it. Kid's got swagger. He's on a roll on the Cup side. He's doing really well. If he didn't almost end up on his lid at Daytona, he would have had a shot to win that thing too. So it's we'll see how he does this weekend in Kentucky.
It's what could lead to problems in the future for him. If he gets hurt once, I bet you won't see Kyle Larson do this.
And a lot of that is...
Which is sad.
And not to stay on the topic of conversation too long, but a lot of this is the reason why Tony Stewart went off and started his own Cup team or bought into his own Cup team, because he wanted the freedom to go do whatever he wanted. I mean, remember, before...
Well, that also
the
applies to
Ward
when they made the switch from Chevy, and he was like, sorry.
Right. That was part of it as well. And even if you go back before the Kevin Ward thing, remember, he broke his leg in a sprint car wreck, and then he went back to do it again, whereas I think any other car on the sport would have said, hey, Tony, if you want to keep going for me, why don't you just stop the short track stuff? Even now, it was actually just reported today that Stewart's going to run a sprint car at Knoxville in the 360 Nationals this weekend. That's where his heart and soul is, and I expect Larson to kind of continue that despite the risk that we've grown to accept.
And real quick, I know you want to wrap this up. I think this helps the sport because you want to know what? If you had a guy like Chase Elliott want to come to Wall Stadium and race, I can tell you even as an official, I'd want to meet a guy like Chase Elliott. I want to shake his hand. I want to say hi to him. I want to talk to him. We had Ryan Preece. We forgot to mention Ryan Preece just signed on for 2 races for Joe Gibbs. Yep. He was at Turkey Derby 2 years ago. He won the Turkey Derby 2 years ago.
Yeah. And now he'll be running in the 20 car at Iowa, New Hampshire.
And these guys, don't forget, I went up to him. He remembered who I was. He was like, yeah, you're the guy from Wall. I was like, yeah, you're Ryan Preece. I mean, that's just what the racing world is all about.
He doesn't like me.
So during your brief stint as an official?
Yeah, that one day that I was an official, I pissed off Ryan Preece. His crew guy came over
That's
cursing.
going to be our new T-shirt.
I'm
Let the
jealous.
Heat Race winner won, and then the one day I was an official, I pissed off Ryan Preece T-shirt.
Hashtags.
They'll sell. Not kidding. There's our merchandise right there.
We'll do $14,000 in a day. Take that, Kyle Larson.
We got it set now. Now at Wall Stadium,
13,001.
yeah.
Price is right. Yeah.
Now, since Josh's return to the on-air stuff here, not a lot has changed at Wall Stadium Speedway. Jimmy Blewett is just flat out dominating. We are now just about almost at the halfway portion of the Wall Stadium Speedway calendar. We've had 2 rainouts, including last week, but we did get the Garden State Classic in, and surprise, surprise, Jimmy Blewett won that as well. Only one other driver has won a modified event. It was Andrew Krause, and Blewett's just kind of running away and stealing the show for the most part.
Now, I don't really get to see the races because my back's turned in the pits, but from what I could tell, what I do watch, it's not like he's just handed over these wins. Krause, Reed, a lot of these guys are making Jimmy work for it. It's just Jimmy always just seems to come out on top.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't want everyone to say, oh, why show up at Wall Stadium Saturday night? Jimmy Blue's just going to win the race. You guys should still come out.
You watch. I've seen him, blow a tire, go to the rear, and then work his way back up, and it is a show.
It's impressive.
Some people love to hate him, and that's part of the fun of it because it's. Whether it's good or not, sometimes no matter what, it's still entertaining when a guy gets out after winning and you still hear the boos. I go back to going to Dover years ago, and when Kyle Busch would come around, you heard this just like people do in the wave. It was a wave of boos following Kyle Busch.
It's like when Eric Brennan comes to Wall.
Yeah.
Well, the RPM podcast. Apparently.
But I just don't want people to get the idea. But I mean, he really is cleaning the track out. But it's nice to see that not only is Blewett really kicking butt, but we have a lot of fast guys getting more and more competitive each season.
And now that the handicapping system will be fully into place, which I'll be honest, I should probably know how it works entirely, and I don't. I know that.
Oh, you don't remember the thing on the wall board about how they write a number on a penny, throw it against the wall, depending on how far it lands from a chair? That's the order.
I can tell you.
Then they randomly invert.
I watched them do the handicap. That is not how it works.
Yeah, I know.
That was one of my favorite posts, though.
And the girls in the pit show do a great job.
They do.
And they're responsible for setting all my lineups. They've been outstanding, and it just makes my job all the more easier. And the handicapping formula is something that has been tweaked on over the last few years. So I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I do know that going forward, if Jimmy wants to continue this role of success, he's probably going to have to work for it because that handicapping system should start siphoning him a little bit further to the middle of the pack.
Correct.
So we'll have to see how that pans out. Also, the break in terms of the weather goes to Tyler Truex, who was leading the Snap-on Tools Sports Division point standing. Had a tour modified ride, or at least a regular 4-barrel carburetor modified ride down at Hickory, North Carolina. He was going to skip this past weekend's races while leading the championship standings, actually tied with Kevin Davison. The rainout may have helped. Not sure if his attention will return to trying to grab a track title at Wall Stadium, but he certainly caught a break there. And as we were talking about, racing names and people who are familiar, Tyler, of course, is the cousin of Martin Truex Jr., who is currently up in the top 3 in the Cup Series standings on the NASCAR
We
Tour.
had Danny Bone at the Garden State Classic.
Right.
Down too.
He was supposed to run a handful of races.
Bowman Gray track champion.
Driving for Scott Brannick and his team. And the rest of the series has just been providing some really excellent racing all year long. This week at Wall Stadium Speedway will be First Responders Night. So that's something that we could be looking forward to. A lot of deals are available there.
And real quick, shout out to the show's friend, Blake Barney, for finishing 10th at Seekonk a few weeks ago.
That was a huge deal.
Huge.
And
what would we say, like out of 30-something cars?
Yeah, I think so. 28, somewhere around there.
He made the show.
That's bigly
impressed.
I shook his hand at Wall the other day, and I could not. I tried my best to wipe the smile off his face, and I couldn't. So congratulations, Blake Barney. You deserve this one.
Smack him or something?
He might have liked it.
Oh, boy.
And how about this for Wall Stadium Speedway First Responders Night, right? All fire, police, and EMTs, free grandstand admission. Please bring your ID. And we're running 2 35-lap modified races plus Sportsman Factory stocks and Legends. Jam-packed schedule. And for a full schedule and details and information, visit wallspeedwayracing.com.
Or follow them on Facebook. They do a lot of great posts now on Facebook, which we do share on our Facebook at RPM Podcast.
Now, the dirt track stuff, I was able to go to New Egypt a couple weeks ago in order to check out one of the special Tuesday night shows. And I'll tell you, that was also after one of the members of the Bone family got a Saturday night win there. The track surface, and from what I'm reading at Bridgeport, the racing there has been quite good as well, but I haven't seen it firsthand. But the track prep at New Egypt this year has been phenomenal. I was entertained all night long. Heat races, and all the way up to the feature time, which if I was to counteract with the other dirt track I've been to this year, Williams Grove Speedway, they couldn't pass because they didn't do anything to the racetrack at all, and they just kind of finally groomed the event for the night in which Danny Boffalino got the win. And I just feel like, and maybe I'm biased because I like to talk about local short track racing in our area, But I just feel like that for this year, the competition and the entertainment value is alive and well at all 3 weekly New Jersey speedways.
And we're sitting right here with Mr. Red Flag himself.
Yeah, and I haven't really had to do that much this year, but we'll see if that changes this Saturday. But it just seems like that everything's on the up and up. And Josh, I'm excited that you're now able to be a part of it as we go forward.
Yeah, once I get a little bit better with my blood counts and, get my immune system to sort of be back on track, I'm hoping to be able to come out to a few races and all that and enjoy. I may not be in a car for a while, but at least I can go and enjoy it, and hopefully no more factory stocks flip over.
That's something else you missed while you're away.
I saw videos very shortly after, and it was overall fairly soft rollover.
Talking about Jerry Koenig, of course.
And he got the car out the next week because of the rain out and everything.
Ready. He did a lot of work to get that car back together, coming back with a vengeance. But luckily it wasn't one of those flips where the car is like up in the air and slams down on the roof. He kind of rolled it over. Impressive to see, kind of scary to see. Glad it never happened to me. I'm glad he's all right. I'm sure it's spooky no matter what, but a little sore. Actually, I'm glad his wife is all right. She ended up, I believe, fainting after all that.
Yeah.
They took her to a local hospital, and she's doing well.
And then when they were done, they got a local hotel room and they came out to Woody to see everybody.
Yeah.
That same night, which is kind of cool.
Yes.
That's how I get to know that Jerry and Peggy were both okay after that.
That's
Wild
awesome.
night for them. Also, in that same night, Bob Havasick Jr. won what we thought was 2 races. Turns out one of them got taken away at the Room of Doom afterwards. But he also proposed to his longtime girlfriend, Diane, so congratulations to them, too.
Yep.
And it's just hard to cover everything that has taken place since we've been back. But hopefully next week we'll be able to just slot right back in the line and continue rolling forward.
But that's okay because we're on social media. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Look us up.
We've been trying to share stuff. Nick is falling asleep. Mike Francesa over there.
Speaking of, for all of our New Jersey fans, I came across this just a little bit ago, and it's actually kind of funny. I don't know how true it is, but as we all know, Mike Francesa, New York sports host, he's actually going to be retiring, I guess you could say, although I don't know if he's going to move
praise
on.
the Lord.
But WFAM is not going to renew their contract. Well, a lot of things have popped up about Chris Christie and what he did on 4th of July with the state beaches that were closed. Apparently, Christie is on the short list of people who are going to interim as a host on WFAN and their afternoon sports programming network.
Chris Christie already has like an hour a week Ask the Governor section on one of our local radio stations. Which
he wanted a 20-minute segment here, and we told him no, didn't we?
He's actually being considered as a candidate in order to become the next Mike Francesa.
Well, he's almost done with his term. Not to get political here, but he's not going to be governor and host a radio show at the same time. It's hard
Why not?
work. The 4 of us, we sweat.
Yeah, well, we were until I put the AC on.
I'm only upset because I thought I had a shot at the gig. That's all. I thought I could beat out Christie.
You're better
on
than
that.
that. You are better
Just
than
learn how to
that.
close all the beaches, and people will love you. And
I can make that happen.
legal fireworks. Yeah. So. But no, the local racing is getting fantastic. It's lightening up. I mean, just in time for 4th of July passing. And
Cars 3.
Yes.
Saw it twice.
Bubble Wheelhouse.
I'm just throwing that out there. I just thought it'd be fun. It's
great.
It's actually there was a really cool. I can't say it was an article. It was a small video they did, like a semi-documentary on 2 female racers. One, I believe, in the K&N series or some version of the K&N series, and another junior dragsters.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
And it was a sponsored post from Cars with the hashtag Cars3. I'll see if we can share that on our page. There's a touching little story.
Like I said, we're on Facebook, folks. You need to add us. Befriend us.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Email us, racingpodcastnj@gmail.com.
Yeah, tell us what you hate about us, and we'll fire right back.
Yeah.
With childish insults.
Well, with that,
and hot dog jokes.
Josh, I love you. I'm glad
Oh,
you're
hold
back.
it. Quick question, Eric. Do you like your hot dogs grilled or boiled?
I think I'm boycotting hot dogs. Josh.
No. This is a
We had a
discussion
serious discussion earlier, and I wanted to ask you. You're a tiebreaker.
Do you prefer the water dogs, or do you prefer
I
grilling
prefer
them?
water dogs. I'll admit it.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same line.
Oh,
It's just
so-
Josh. It's just me and you, man.
Yeah,
See, me
grilled.
and Josh, we don't like them burnt, but we just want to see like a line for
I
aesthetic
mean, a nice
purposes.
grilled dog is good, but you can never go wrong with dirty water dog.
Right?
you
It's
know?
always consistent.
At
it's
all,
always
at
good
all the
to you.
roach coaches.
Chocolate
they're
starfish
perfect.
hot dog.
Yeah.
water.
That's right. It's not the RPM podcast without a hot dog.
Yep.
No, never. I was out at Woody's the other night, and Chris Gall was eating dinner with a bunch of people, and he screams, "Eric, you ordering a hot dog?" And I wanted to punch him, but I couldn't because he was too far away, and two, he wasn't wrong. I was thinking about it. But with that, Josh, I love you. I'm glad you're back. And
I'm
more
glad you guys are back in the porch
glad you're
hanging out doing this, and we'll do it again next week.
So on behalf of Josh Matthews, Sam Ballard Jr., and Nicholas Rendo, I'm Eric Brennan. I want to wish you all a fantastic week, and we will see you next week on the RPM podcast.
Go to wall.